And then once that solidifies, everything is very battle tested, assume clarity passes later, and then the non-bank broker dealers are ready to enter space. There's like 2,000 to 3,000 of them. We'll be very well positioned to be able to service them and say, hey, look.
And so I decided to do something a little bit more efficient with that capital, also considering that I could earn some yield on the Solana that I had bought over on the Metallicus ecosystem at about 6%. Solana was printing a buy delta held at the dark pool at the 63.60. And I mentioned to you guys that Solana was trading at that level for the first time since October 2023. So I had to scoop some up at that discounted price, and I'm super happy with that investment. And then as we continued through the bullish move on Solana, I gave you guys some updates here. We had talked about in this update at the $74.38 threshold, I mentioned that if we can see price expand through $74.38 and turn that into support, then the next bullish targets would likely be anywhere between $94 to $103. And from that date, down here on August 17th, once we turned those levels into support, we came up into the 103 threshold to the almost absolute point. Once we resituated at the high on August 23rd, I went ahead and I updated you guys on the next bullish targets. Here we discussed and talked about that if we can see $94.16 hold as support, that we could then see $103 break, and then the next bullish target would be 115, followed by 130 and 139. And from the date that I put that post out, we did exactly that so far. So now I'm here to pick up where we left off. On the hourly time frame, from the time that I put that post out to you guys, we did retest to $94.16. And since then, we've seen a beautiful buy delta held from that threshold, where we have now created a 1 here, pushed higher through the previous high, pulled back, retested it, creating the 1, the 2, the 3. And now we have since broken above the 103.8 cent level. $103.08 level. So the question now is, can this hold, and can we see a nice squeeze up into higher levels at $115 to $139 on Solana? And if not, what bearish targets am I personally being mindful of, and where am I continuing to hold this bullish bias on Solana that price could go higher as long as price is above? So right now, considering that this was the last major push on Solana at roughly about 94 bucks, then I'm going to continue to hold the bullish bias that as long as we're trading above where all of these sellers were trapped by buyers, price consolidated and created a reaccumulation schematic, as long as we can hold above $94, even if we saw a pullback down into this threshold, that would still open up the door for a bullish move up until 115 as our next bullish target. If we don't get a pullback into 94.16, then we could just see a revisitation of 103, turn into support, and then a nice squeeze higher. And if we don't see a pullback into 103 and we just continue higher from here, a nice push up into 115 is still on the table. So as long as we are trading above 94.16, I have a firm belief that one of these three scenarios could materialize. And if we do end up breaking in an extremely bullish environment on Solana higher than 115, I might start to look at offloading maybe like 100 to 200 Solana tokens at these levels, depending on how sellers react to them if we get a squeeze up to them. So we'll see. I'm not really looking to offload Solana at 103 or 115. Even if we saw a pullback, I'll probably just accumulate more. And when we get into these higher 100 level thresholds, if we start to see sellers come in, I might consider playing around with some intraday swings and reposition some capital down at discounted prices if we get a pullback. And if not, then fine, I'll just start accumulating more at a discounted price regardless. So we'll see. Bearish scenario, of course, would be a break of that $94.16 threshold, and then we could start to open up the door for a deeper retracement. So if we start to see bearish sell delta held formations, a break of all this previous support, and underneath of it, we see a bearish close below $94.16. The first bearish target underneath of that is going to be a revisitation of $85.11, where I will start to consider reaccumulating some Solana. Underneath of $85, next underneath of that hurdle is going to be 80.14. We'll stop there. Sellers would have a lot of work to do on Solana right now to push us back below 80.14. So that means that if we do get there, we'll probably have an update between now and then, or if that does happen. So downside targets underneath 94.16 are 85.11 and 80.14. Upside targets above $94 are still 115 next, 130 and 139. Now, coming over to the Wyoming Blockchain Symposium 2026, streamed 8 days ago. Two videos that I want to play. The first one being another representative on stage. If we remember Danielle Dixon in a previous video that I shared with you guys saying that they don't need the Clarity Act to pass, that the floodgates are already open. And here we have another representative on stage saying the same thing at the same exact summit, just on day 2. Take a second here and listen.
Regulatory clarity.
Again, it's still in the early innings when it comes to this. Look, I think that the Genius Act not allowing people to earn interest on stablecoin is not helpful. It actually hurts quite a bit in this growing properly.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we will. At some point, we'll see that improved.
Great. We've touched on regulatory clarity a little bit, but more specifically, like how much of each of your guys' roadmap for the next 2 years literally cannot happen if clarity doesn't pass?
I'll kick it off. It doesn't necessarily stop us, and I'll explain this way. So from an institutional client base, obviously the regulation is hugely important. Institutions won't engage unless they understand the regulations, they understand that it's somewhat permanent, that it's not going to change in the next election cycle. That's when they can engage and they can grow. So yes, there is a problem, obviously, with our expansion thoughts if we don't have clarity on clarity. So we'll have a problem there. But to be perfectly candid, and I think you alluded to this, different markets are already moving. So for us, we're not going to wait for this regulatory clarity. It just means that we're going to go to a different market and we're going to start there first. So you're seeing what the FCA is doing, we're seeing what the Asian markets are doing. So look, if you don't get clarity, obviously it slows down one region, but capital is just going to move somewhere else. Yeah,
that's a really good point. Do you want to take it?
Yeah, look, I would say from a Hyperliquid perspective, everything Hyperliquid has done to date, which is a blockchain generating, around about $1 billion a year of revenues and cash flow, has done it outside the U.S. And zero of it has relied on the U.S. And I think clarity passing one way or the other is not going to materially change that overnight. So the answer to your question really is zero. On the other hand, there's no doubt that clarity passing will be seen as a real step forward to moving all this stuff going forward, which would be great. But to Ash's point, we're all very U.S.-centric here because we're sitting here in the United States. If the U.S. doesn't do this, and if we go back to being a anti-crypto, innovation economy, the innovation's going to happen somewhere else. This stuff is not going to slow down. It's going to happen elsewhere, and it's going to be to the benefit of other countries and to the detriment of the U.S.
So pretty much what I'm taking away from this is that everybody that's so focused on clarity passing isn't focused on the momentum that could kick in regardless if clarity passes or not. Because that's like the 5th person that I've heard with valid credentials from this guy's from Hyperliquid, the other guy's is from some multi-billion-dollar asset management firm, and he literally just said, we're going to move forward regardless if clarity passes or not. If we can't move forward in the United States, then we'll just move our business overseas and then we'll move forward from there. But this thing is going to expand regardless if Clarity Act passes or not. Now, in Clarity Act's defense, if it does pass, of course, it'll be a supportive catalyst, but this crypto industry is going to move forward regardless. So everybody looking at it as a catalyst that has to happen for adoption to take place is actually skewed, in my opinion, to their attention is in the wrong place. I think that this is going to happen regardless if Clarity Act passes. If it does pass, it'll of course be a major tailwind and very supportive of risk assets, particularly pertaining to crypto, right? So we'll see. That was just something to interestingly pond on, considering all the stuff that's, when people are like, oh, the market sold off because Clarity Act didn't get passed. I don't think it has anything to do with that at all whatsoever, right? If the market sells off, it's going to be due to some other major fundamental catalyst like central bank policy, markets pricing in interest rates, dollar strength, catalyst on the Middle East tensions, like something more fundamentally driven rather than just clarity, because it's clear as day that from an institutional standpoint, you guys just heard that dude say, and even freaking Danielle Dixon herself said, we don't need Clarity Act to pass. The floodgates are open, right? So just something to ponder on when you're floating around on social media and everybody's like, oh my God, Clarity's not passing yet. It's bearish. Is it really? When you have people saying that there's 2,000 banks that are about to onboard into the space, regardless if Clarity Act passes. Take a second and listen to what this guy here says.
see as we're building for the big banks. They're some of the most sophisticated. No, our roadmap.
Existing law, so I think that's an area that really will
That's exactly right. Everything we're working on is under
evolve.
existing laws.
Right.
We're not counting on anything left.
Yeah, even in the absence of congressional action. Tony, what do you think?
No, our roadmap keeps progressing, and like very selfishly from the EDX perspective, the positive for us that we see is we're building for the big banks. They're some of the most sophisticated institutions in the world, and so we're able to create what they need. And then once that solidifies, everything is very battle tested. Assume Clarity passes later, and then the non-bank broker dealers are ready to enter space. There's like 2,000 to 3,000 of them. We'll be very well positioned to be able to service them and say, hey, look, we've already been doing this with folks that are, doing this at GSIB scale. So, no impact. Everything is very what they need, and then once that solidifies, everything is very battle tested. Assume Clarity passes later, and then the non-bank broker dealers are ready to enter space. There's like 2,000 to 3,000 of them. We'll be very well positioned to be able to service them and say, hey, look, we've already been doing this with folks that are, doing this at GSIB scale. So, no impact for us.
Do you think?
Yo, this motherfucker just said that Clarity, there's no impact. They're going to start offering these things to their clients regardless, that there's already 2,000 of these banks situated and ready to start offering these things to their clients. So that way, when all the other banks catch up, right, they have a place to go to be like, hey, we've already been doing this for some time. Now Clarity Act's here. Now you're ready, and we're here to offer it for you, help you, right? But they're not waiting. They're not waiting, right? That's crazy confirmation to me to just kind of shift the mindset around Clarity, that it would be a catalyst that is supportive, of course, but it's not a catalyst that's going to hold back adoption over the next couple of years. Let's say, for example, it keeps getting pushed back to 2027, 2028, so on and so forth. We could still see this market, especially if we saw underlying fundamentals supportive of a risk-on environment like rate cuts, liquidity injections, weaker labor market data, cooler inflation, Middle East tensions ease, lower oil prices, dollar weakness, any other catalyst that could support risk assets could still be a bullish catalyst regardless if Clarity Act passes or not, which is the message that I'm trying to convey to you all, to not be manipulated by the mainstream that's making you believe that we need Clarity Act to have a bull run. We don't. It would be supportive, don't get me wrong, but is it mandatory? No. Bull run could happen regardless of Clarity Act or not. So be prepared for that. Situate yourselves accordingly. We see where we're at in current prices. Use the dark pools efficiently and effectively in your strategy. And let's go from there. Solana, this was a huge announcement. Last thing I'll say to you guys before we hop off here. 8/27, so this was today, just announced. In the coming months, Schwab crypto clients will be able to buy and sell Solana, Avalanche, and Chainlink. Schwab Crypto, which began rolling out to clients in May of this year, 2026, already provides direct access to Bitcoin and Ethereum trading and is now expanding their portfolio for clients to Solana, Avalanche, and Chainlink. The additions are part of Schwab's plans to thoughtfully expand. And by the way, Schwab, let me go back to Solana's post right here. Yeah, $13 trillion in client assets. And now they're offering Solana. Now, the best part about this is this not Solana biased? Okay, so check this out. This is what I really wanted to show you guys. It says these new digital assets will be available in the coming months for clients to buy and sell in their Schwab crypto accounts. So think about it. People want to exit crypto right now or not purchase into it, but now we have one of the largest freaking investment firms offering crypto to their clients outside of just Bitcoin and Ethereum for the first time in history in the coming months ahead. It literally says and will be available in the coming months. With expansion, clients will have more choices to build a digital asset allocation alongside the investing and banking experience that they know and trust at Schwab, said Joey Verdi, head of digital assets at Charles Schwab, that these additions are consistent with our approach to provide clients with access to familiar cryptocurrencies backed by an ecosystem of education, tools, resources, and support to make informed decisions about how crypto might fit into their broader investment goals. Then down here, what I really like is that it says Schwab plans to add additional cryptocurrencies and digital assets to the Schwab crypto platform over time. So again, this isn't biased on these particular digital assets. They plan to roll out access to more digital assets in the coming months ahead. I wouldn't be surprised if eventually we see assets like XLM, HBAR, XRP, the other major layer ones that are readily available to invest in that have ETFs behind them or have the ability to earn yield through staking capabilities, so on and so forth. So very interesting to say the least. And then last but not least, I'll play this video clip from the Solana page. It's this video of this gentleman on stage saying that everything that Wall Street can do now can be done on Solana from a phone and an internet connection. Listen to what he says here.
From right now on Solana, you're able to like trade stocks. You can buy Tesla stock, Amazon stock. We know that we have some challenges accessing those instruments from our regions. You can also buy gold. You can buy silver. You can also buy Bitcoin. You can buy any of the big cryptocurrencies. You can essentially also trade foreign exchange. So essentially the foreign exchange, like if you want to exchange euros to dollars, it's like you get better rates on Solana than you go to like any bank or exchange office. If you want to earn interest on some of your deposits, you like, get a better interest on Solana, on some borrow lending platforms like, I don't know, Camino, than you would get on a sort of deposit interest on in a bank. So I would say we are in this position that people who were in New York in 1971, and those people were able to be sort of like directly plugged into the NASDAQ when price discovery started being digital. And right now, every one of you can do that today with a mobile phone and internet connection. And do any financial instrument, essentially any financial instrument that Wall Street was able to do just from like.
Now, the reason why I brought that up is because he specifically mentioned that we are in an era of internet adoption where back in 1971, right, stocks now trading on the NASDAQ went into price discovery mode and all these things. And if you guys remember, I showed you all back on TradingView charts, we go back and we look at Amazon stock as just an example, right? And let me see, where the heck is Amazon stock at? Here it is. And we go back to those days. And I specifically told you all that we are in an environment where this is about to happen to certain digital assets in crypto. And even though this is years worth of data here, right? What this guy is talking about is that we are right here in the era of crypto investing, because this is just 1998. He's talking about 1971 type shit. And so this is what's coming to this market, believe it or not, when these numbers really hit and all these institutions flood, and we don't know if it's going to be tomorrow or if it's going to be a month from now or 2 years from now. But I'd rather play the game like it is going to happen in our lifetime rather than sit on the sidelines and pretend like it isn't, right? Because when this happens to certain projects in crypto, I'm telling you guys right now, we're going to feel really blessed that we were paying attention to buying at these dark pools, hodling and earning yield on our assets and accumulating more with a long-term view, rather than the people that were all fear-based and over-leveraged and over freaking just all rattled out of their brains because their personal life just completely wrecked their decision-making. And instead here in this community, we're focused, we're dialed in, right? We're tapping into freaking Camille's weekly spiritual calls when she has them in the future, making sure that we're aligned and, straightforward looking with a good, solid mental approach. And I'm telling you, there is going to be a lot of success for a lot of people in this community that lock the F in, right? So that's my presentation for today. I hope that you guys enjoyed. I will leave the floor open for questions or comments if you guys have anything. Again, remember, I try to leave the floor open for you all to break down your trades. If you had anything from today that you had an issue with, or that, you weren't seeing properly, bring your trades up to the table. And if not, then in future Zoom calls, make sure that you try to make an attempt to do so we can pick apart problems that you might be having or things that we can improve on as a community. All right, so floor is open.